Hello and welcome to Poets Corner, everyone. And we all welcome Nathan to the stage.
Hello. Afternoon, everybody. It is an absolute honour to be in this space, sharing the stage with so many incredibly talented people and being in this beautiful location and just getting to come and share some poetry with you all today. My name is Nathan Lunt. I was lucky enough to be the artist in residence at the museum a couple of weeks ago and got a chance to write some pieces inspired by different pieces in this room and the various exhibitions in the gallery. So I am going to read one of those for you to start things off. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to see the Wonderlands exhibition at the end there about the history of cinema in Birmingham. It's fascinating, and I suggest going and having a look. This is a series of, basically, I wrote a bunch of haikus while I was sitting watching the exhibition, and I've strung them all together into a little poem for you. The silver screen looms, eye of an alien god projecting its dreams. These magic lanterns open gateways to new worlds, pathways carved in light. Wood, glass, and plastic can contain universes never seen before. Faraway places, recreated in dark rooms, close enough to touch. Art Deco temples, cathedrals for star worship filled with disciples. Minds are expanded, imaginations ignite, and new ideas bloom. Orchestras play on, keeping pace with what's on screen as the punters cheer, each reel a release from the everyday humdrum, a glimpse of greatness. Gorgeous faces play out fairy tale romance for adoring crowds. When the picture ends, they return to the real world, changed by what they've seen. The impossible made real for a few brief hours by celluloid ghosts. Thank you. I wanted to do something Black History Month themed, and I was unsure about how to approach the subject. And so I decided to come from the experiences that I've had of Black History Month. I used to teach primary school kids and some secondary school kids, and the way Black History Month is taught in schools in this country is not fantastic, to be honest. It's a very, very compressed bubble of very, very specific topics, and they'll look at a couple of like, oh, look, these successful modern day artists and athletes, and then basically nothing else is talked about. And I had a few experiences that irked me with this when I did this job, and so I've tried to write something about how I worked with the kids that I taught to try and communicate Black History Month. So. They stare at me with sheer confusion, young minds trying to comprehend a concept so ridiculous they think I must have made it up. We teach that everyone is equal. Everyone deserves respect, and yet they're trying to wrap their heads around the fact that decades back someone decreed that people could be property based on the colour of their skin, that varying shades of melanin were cause enough to stake their claim and drag whole families off in chains, rip children from their mother's arms and ship them off to cotton farms, erase their past, replace their names, forbid them to communicate, then trade them for a case of wine, some coffee beans or exotic spice, let coffers' profits stack up high by destroying uncountable human lives. I see the confusion in their eyes, and I can't describe the guilt I feel at having to be the one to reveal that the shade of your skin or the place of your birth could be used by someone to determine your worth. But the worst part of all is the things I don't say, as decreed by the government's latest mandate that we don't ever mention the role the UK played in leading the craze for the trading of slaves. How when good old Britannia was ruling the waves, there were hundreds of thousands who went to their graves. And when 300,000 can sign a campaign to allow our colonial past to be taught, they should be some decision on changes we make, but instead their request is completely ignored. As they stare at me still while I stand by the board, I decide that I'm done with this stupid charade. I'm not playing this game, guarding what I should say as a way to displace some historical blame. It's my job to inform them and nurture their brains with the facts that are culturally relevant. So I won't pretend Britain was blamelessly pure when to do so insults their intelligence. So I tear up the plans for the lesson we had, and I open the class up to suggestion. And we run out the rest of the afternoon stretch with them asking me curious questions. We discuss how it feels to be black and be British and what that identity means day to day, how they think they would feel about what we've been learning and how it might feel to be treated that way. We talk of campaigns, of the civil rights movement, of protests and riots and social reforms, and the more we discuss things, the more they're confused that they never learnt any of this stuff before. Now it's 3:15 and the day's at an end, so we pack up the classroom and head for the door, and they ask if we're done with Black History Month or if next week there'll be time for learning some more. And I say I'm not sure, that we'll see how it goes, but there's nothing that's stopping them learning at home. So why don't they go research some Black British heroes and tell me on Monday what new facts they know? And I'm watching them leaving, I can't help but think that I'm probably getting in trouble for this. There'll be emails coming to open on Monday to warn me that I should have stick to the script. But I'll be damned if I'm going to drivel some spiel or performative gesture just muddling through. If they want me to teach, then I'll teach with conviction, and that starts with telling the truth. Thanks very much. Title. And I've never had a chance to do this piece in front of an audience because it's slightly over the stretch for open mic nights. But seeing as you're all here and I've got you for another 5 minutes, I thought, can I share this poem with you? Would that be all right? Thank you very much. This is my version of a poetic epic in the spirit of the Iliad and the Odyssey. It's not that long, thankfully. This is just called A Mermaid's Tale. Lured out by a wind of mysterious whispers, a fishing ship unfurled its billowing sails and set out on the course of a perilous voyage to chase just a trace of a great mermaid's tale. High, harsh, raging waves sent delays to them daily, and scared sailors prayed for some kind of relief as a siren song sickness enraptured their captain and threatened to wreck them on ruinous reefs. To keep up their spirits through wearisome hardship, the captain told tales of the noble sea sprites with their skins smooth as pearls and hair waving like seaweed who tease those on land with aquatic delights. When the moon's striking light cuts a knife through the brine, you might spy them at play in those grey and green depths. There's a merciless beauty in their emerald eyes that can stun any sailor and steal their breath. But be wary, my friends, keep your hands off your nets. We're not meant to try catching such fabulous creatures. There's magical passions untamed by the ages that's laying in wait beneath innocent features. Love isn't a cage to imprison a victim. We show them respect so we might earn their trust. We don't search for a mermaid in hopes to enslave them. We gaze on their beauty, not taint it with lust. For a month long it went, and the crew saw no end as the captain continued his venerable quest, and one troublesome sailor grew sick of the waiting, and in his frustration he stirred up the rest. Now, far be it from me to suggest mutiny. I'm as loyal as seawater's salty. But we're down to hardtack, and we're rationing that. It's been weeks since we've had beef or poultry. I'm so sick of this ship. I thought sailors got rich. Now we're living on pickles and biscuits. Or to chase down a myth for the captain to kiss. It's his life, not ours, he should be risking. The old captain's gone mad. I say we head back to land. Here's our chance, and we don't want to miss it. But if mermaids are real, let's have one for a meal. I bet they taste much better than biscuits. Now, was it meant as a joke when the sailor first spoke, or an actual valid suggestion? Well, the long months at sea with nothing good to eat had attacked the crew's minds and digestion, and they started to question. Resentment and tempers both grew as morale took a plummet, and their love for their captain did nothing to dampen the maddening pangs in their stomachs. All this came to a summit when early one morning, the crew were awakened by jubilant cries from a captain sat up through the night in the crow's nest, his face a great smile and tears in his eyes. He pointed a shaking hand out to the ocean where waters were churned up by movement beneath, and a streak of green hair was seen breaching the surface, the pearl-coloured skin with a fish scale sheen. All the crew stood there dumbstruck, each sceptic in awe as the radiant maiden emerged from the sea. She wore seaweed and shells used to cover herself while her tail lapped gracefully somewhere beneath. She had sparkling eyes that swept over the scene as she searched for the face of the man what she'd once known. And her smile spread wide when she spotted the captain who'd won her affections those long years ago. As she opened her mouth to declare how she'd missed him, her voice was cut short by a gurgle of blood as the mutinous sailor let fly a harpoon and impaled the tip of it deep in her gut. The heartbroken captain reacted with horror and lunged at the sailor to throttle his neck, but the blade of a cutlass slipped into his stomach and left him to splutter and bleed on the deck. All the notes were let fly as the poor mermaid writhed and her briny blood mixed with the water. She was dragged to the ship and strung up by the crew who had every intention to slaughter. But as soon as they saw her, hung lifeless and limp, they were stripped of all grit and conviction, and the corpse of their captain bled out on the planks as the traitor came back from the kitchen. He had cleaver in hand, in the other a pan, and was set to carving and slicing. But the crew were distraught at the bloodshed they'd wrought, and their meals seemed much less enticing. "What's the problem here, lads? What, you think I've gone mad now I'm starting to carve up this creature? You're a cowardly crew. We agreed what we'd do. If we caught a mermaid, then we'd eat her. Don't go getting cold feet. We've got ourselves a feat. Now's the time for decisions and action. We can do what we like now we've captured our prize, and I've set us all free of that captain." Then a crackling cacophony shattered the air as the breaking waves battered and rattled the hull, and the traitorous sailor dropped dead to the deck with a smouldering bullet hole straight through his skull. Just who fired the shot, no one really could tell, but the smoking guns numbered a dozen and more as the heartbroken crew laid him low in their grief and lamented that no one had shot him before. They'd returned to the shore and abandoned their vessel and tried to forget about all that they'd seen, but they'd first wrap the captain in canvas and rigging and bury both him and the mermaid at sea. So they wrapped them respectfully, tethered together, and offered a prayer as they sank to the depths. They'd spent most of their mortal lives pining, divided, now finally resting, united in death. But the shuddering breath of a gale began stirring, and murmuring voices were heard on the wind. As the waters grew stormy, the waves gained in number, and black boiling thunderclouds came rolling in. Soon the ship was embroiled in roiling rapids, the crew at the mercy of nature's great rage, as the ghost of the mermaid and captain rose up from the water, now wrapped in a lover's embrace. Both their spectral forms bore the shimmers of blood from the wounds that had ended their loves and their lives. As the storm became stronger, it bent to their will, and they looked on the sailors with cold, haunted eyes. The sky came alight with a volley of thunderbolts, striking the ship with a shattering blast which ignited the sails in a great conflagration, blew holes in the bulkhead, and splintered the mast. Though the longboats were cast off, the crew had no hope of escaping their fate in a watery grave. Though betrayal their captain had not gone as planned, they'd be endlessly damned for the mermaid they'd slain. Now the waves made a spiraling dive to the seabed, and multiple currents converged and combined, and the great yawning maw of a whirlpool appeared, and the ship and the crew were completely submerged. All their gurgling, bubbling, screaming was smothered by dark freezing waters which covered their cries. Then the ocean returned to a tranquil expanse, and the storm clouds subsided to sunny blue skies. As the ghosts of the lovers held tight to each other, they grew insubstantial like wavering mist, until finally fading away into nothing, departing at last with a lingering kiss. And so to this day, there's a legend that's told when old sailors are drinking and deep in their cups, of a ship and a crew who were dragged to the depths, of a mermaid who bled and the captain she loved. And they'll swear there's a stretch of exceptional ocean where weather and water are always serene, but at night the most frightening sightings of spirits dredged up from a derelict shipwreck are seen. And while most of them only make long groaning moans, one particular phantom will strike a man dead, and he carries a pan and a great gleaming cleaver and bleeds from a bullet hole straight through his head. Now the thread of our tale has come to an end, and you might wonder, what was the moral it taught? Was there some kind of lesson to learn from this mess, or was all of this tragedy simply for naught? The unfortunate fact is, not all stories end with insightful enlightenment, wisdom and truth. So instead of expecting a definite answer, decide for yourself what this tale means to you. Does it tell of the hubris and folly of men, of obsession, starvation, betrayal and doom? Or does it instead tell of true love's great splendor, a romance transcendent and ended too soon? That I leave up to you. Now our story is through. Time to haul up the anchor, unfurl all the sails, and cast off from the dock on a tale of adventure to chase down the trace of our next epic tale. Thank you very much.